All right, let's get started. Thank you all for staying. Busy week. Usually when we start first week of session, it's pretty slow. Everyone's getting used to being back in the building with COVID. Everyone's getting used to wearing masks back in the building. But as you know, because of COVID, we had so many bills left over from last session. The Pro Tem made the decision, and I agree with it, to move forward as quickly as possible. So we've had a lot of committee work this week. We're very pleased, my caucus was very pleased to work with the Pro Tem to get a bill passed yesterday that will allow public bodies to be able to have their meetings, conduct their meetings remotely. That was something we passed at the end of last session, and it was very helpful. A lot of people liked it. A lot of business was conducted that way, so it was good that we were able to get that passed because it had expired in November. I have been in general government, so I did not get to hear the loft meeting, but my understanding is that they did meet and went over some of the things on the agenda. But as far as the report that's been filed, and some of your outlets probably have been part of that, that agenda item was not discussed because of a member of the committee that had to leave for a family emergency. From what we know about the report, some of which has been presented by some of you here in the room, it's raised concerns that we have a situation where perhaps the process that's being used for the distribution of COVID monies that we have already received may not have been followed properly. I'm going to be interested in seeing the report and to ascertain whether or not the CARES money has been spent as intended and within the guidelines set forth by the federal government. My caucus has advocated for quite some time to ensure that as CARES money came in, that we had a way of tracking it, that we had a way of administering, and we had a way of distributing the money that was proper and also within the federal guidelines. I'm sure you all are very much aware that if in fact CARES money was spent in an improper way or in a way that didn't fit the protocols that were needed, the federal government can do a clawback and ask that we return that money. So we're going to be reading that report with a great deal of interest to ascertain if we do have any problems, and if we do, that those are remedied before we get additional CARES money, which may be coming under the new administration. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
I guess I'll ask, I don't know the answer to this, but were you made aware of the censuring of the floor leader and the situation that led to Assistant Floor Leader Simpson kind of taking the reins this week?
No, not until I think it was your article, Trace?
Yes, I wrote this.
That's when I became aware of it.
Can you talk about your reaction to the managed care contracts that were announced last week and just your stance on that?
I'm sorry, my stance on what?
On the managed care contracts that were announced last week?
My concern and my caucus's concern with the managed care contracts is this. Managed care is going to be, Medicaid expansion is going to be probably one of the biggest policy shifts of this state in over a decade. And everything that's been done moving forward with Medicaid expansion and looking at managed care systems to incorporate into that expansion has been done while the legislature has not been in session. So there has been no input from the co-equal branch of government with the governor's office about how we're going to implement a $2 billion shift. It's a great concern to us that as representatives of the people's voice hasn't been heard in dealing with a situation, dealing with a policy shift, which frankly is taking place because of a state question that was a very close state question. So when you have a situation where the state is almost equally divided about moving forward with Medicaid expansion, it makes sense that you would have the people's representatives in the House and the Senate as part of that discussion, and that just hasn't happened.
Senator, I wanted to ask your thoughts on masking in this building. The rules require masks for the public and staff and not members. I wanted your thoughts on that. And then B, we saw during a hearing the other day, a big group of people singing out in the halls with no masks on. Do you think there needs to be more enforcement?
Thank you for the question. I had a discussion with some of the Capitol sergeants that we have, and immediately following yesterday, leaving a conference room where I had to walk through some of the visitors here who were not masked. That was followed up with a discussion with Chief Sergeant yesterday afternoon, and then Senator David and I had a discussion earlier this afternoon about moving forward. I'm very concerned that we are having visitors to the Capitol who are not abiding by the executive order from the governor that all state buildings, visitors to state buildings will be wearing masks. The governor signed that. It was a big step, and if it's not going to be enforced and if people are not going to abide by that order, then we're going to have to make some corrections in how we do things up at the Capitol.
Oh, I have one. Sorry. I'm asking you this a little bit because you're my state senator and you're the state senator where my business is located. You talked about the Open Meetings Act, change or extension being passed yesterday or advanced yesterday. I know there's another bill that the Pro Tem has on some other reforms to the Open Meeting Act. Do you believe it would be appropriate in the year 2021 to require public bodies to post their meeting agendas and their public notices on the internet, on their website, if they have a website?
It's a really good question, and it's interesting because there are very, very few silver linings to COVID. As everyone knows, it's just a tragic virus we're dealing with in a global pandemic. But from the communication standpoint, it's forced us to be more open to doing things a little bit differently. I know that I've had requests to file bills for open records and open meetings. Virtual is the standard of the day now. In-person meetings are the exception to the rule. As far as posting and how we're going to move forward, it's a new day every day. And I think you're seeing the state adapt pretty well. I think state government has adapted, for the most part, has adapted quite well. And it may end up being a model in some cases for private businesses. The intricacies of posting and voting and all those things, it's a really good question, and I think it's something that's just going to continue to evolve. I am going to be interested to see the Pro Tem's language, and I know he's not the only one filing bills, so I'm going to be interested to see how all those come together and if we can piece together some additional ways of moving forward while still keeping the public safe, but keeping them informed.
So just, is that a yes that you think in 2021 a public body with a website should post its agenda and meeting notices on its website should be required to? Or is that a maybe?
If it's the only way it's posted, that's problematic because we've got parts of the state that don't have internet access. So there's some concern. I think that's been some of the concerns, is just making sure that we can still get notice to the people, the new technology that we have with the old technology. But to answer your question, Trace, I think that it's something that needs to be looked at, and we're going to need to bring it up. There's going to be a lot of questions we never anticipated before.
Sure. It's just interesting, the idea that like a school board could have a meeting, and they're going to have a meeting by Zoom, but they print out the agenda and paste it into the back window of the building, around, like they're not online. So for us, so I'm asking again, I think have an opinion on it, but that was why I thought I'd ask.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Real quickly on redistricting, I know that there's been a lot of outreach to the public, lots of meetings around the state. As your caucus kind of felt like they're on a good spot, getting feedback from folks on that and kind of the shapes of the district from the data from them.
I know as far as redistricting is concerned, the primary Q&A that we're having is with our district itself and people in our district to find out what their needs are, ensure that we know our districts as well as I think we do, and I hope we do. We have had working meetings with the redistricting person in charge. Keith Beal has been our contact. Pro Tem's available whenever I want to visit with him, but Keith is the one who's sort of walking through my members who are on the committee. That's Senator Julia Kurt and Senator Michael Brooks are our two delegates on that redistricting committee. They're doing a great job. The information is just overwhelming, And the way redistricting works is so complicated and so complex. You cannot change one district without changing every other district in the state. So I think we all have a newfound appreciation for the process. That being said, we are getting inconsistent information from the Census Bureau on when we're going to get numbers. And I think that's starting to evolve into more dependable information. The new administration is very committed to making sure the census numbers are accurate, that we get the complete count, and that we get those numbers as soon as possible. I can't imagine that we're going to be able to get it completed by the end of this session, which means it's likely that we'll end up in special session sometime this year.
Just to clarify, I think census said possibly by April, and usually done by January, right?
There's a lot of, well, you all listen to the national news, there's a lot of concern that the count was not complete. I will be candid with you all that I have concerns that in the southern part of my district, we didn't get a complete count. I worked with the Census Bureau during the counting process. We tried to do community outreach, but we just didn't get the kind of federal support we needed. That was my experience in my district. With the new administration, they have gone in, they're doing a lot of house cleaning, and I think that we're going to see an efficiency moving forward we haven't seen in the past.
Senator Floyd, the General Government Committee just passed a bill basically allowing the defunding cities that decide to be like sanctuary cities for immigrants. What are your thoughts on that?
I debated against that bill. I asked quite a few questions of the author. I didn't get satisfactory answers, so I voted no on that bill. My biggest concern with that bill is the fact that it's just one in many that we've seen every year in session that does away with local control. You know, no matter what the specific issue is, the cities and the municipalities should be able to make those decisions without having sweeping statewide changes by the legislature. And it's not the first one we've seen. Since I got over to the Senate, I can't even count on two hands anymore how many times the legislature's taken away local control from cities and municipalities. And this is just one more example of it. So that's the main reason I voted no. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.